Let me ask you something. What do you think actually gets you into the room? The private dinner, the closed door deal, the invite only circle where real decisions get made and real money moves quietly in the background? Most people would say money, and honestly, that answer makes complete sense until you start paying attention to who's actually sitting at those tables. Because here's what nobody tells you. There are people in those rooms right now, closing deals you'll never see advertised, building relationships that will compound for decades, and they are not the richest people in the building. Not even close. Meanwhile, there are people with serious money, like generational money, who are permanently on the outside looking in, invited to nothing, included in nothing, and they genuinely cannot figure out why. The thing that actually gets you in has nothing to do with your bank account. It's something far more rare, far more powerful, and almost nobody is deliberately building it. We're going to break down exactly what it is today, step by step. And by the end of this video, you'll understand a system that the top 1% don't exactly advertise, because the moment it becomes common knowledge, it stops working for them. Welcome to the 1% Vault. Here's something that probably stings a little. You've watched people who are, and I say this gently, objectively less talented than you, move faster, get further, and land opportunities that you didn't even know existed. And your instinct is to call it luck, or connections, or nepotism. And sometimes, yeah, it is. But most of the time, it's something else entirely. The real issue is that you've been operating in a vacuum. You've been putting your head down, doing the work, producing results, and quietly waiting for the world to notice. And the world has a brutal answer to that approach. It doesn't reward value that exists in isolation. It rewards the consensus of value. In other words, it's not enough to be great. The right people have to agree that you're great. Those people who keep getting lucky, they figured out a social currency that most people don't even know is being traded, and it's more stable, more scalable, and more valuable than any investment you'll ever make. Here's what it actually is. Now let's talk about networking, because I guarantee the way you've been taught to do it is actively working against you. Most people treat networking like a transaction. You go to an event, you scan the room for whoever seems most useful to you, you walk over with your elevator pitch loaded, you exchange cards, and then you wonder why nothing comes of it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment you walk into a room looking for what you can get, high-level people feel it. And I mean that literally. They feel it. They've been in enough rooms to know the difference between someone who's there to contribute and someone who's there to extract. And they are very, very good at filtering the extractors out. Politely, of course, but out. The reframe is this. Stop thinking of people as contacts on a list and start thinking of them as nodes in a living network. Every person you genuinely add value to becomes a connection point that opens up their entire world to you. The elite don't build networks, they engineer proximity, and there's a massive difference between those two things. Real quick, if you're still watching at this point, you're already in the top tier of people who actually think about this stuff. The least you can do is hit like and subscribe so the algorithm knows to keep sending you content like this. Consider it your first act of strategic positioning. Now, back to the vault. So what does this actually look like in practice? There's a framework I want to walk you through, and it comes down to 3 stages that when you stack them in the right order, it changes how every powerful person in a room perceives you. The first stage is what I call signal calibration, and this one's going to sting a little. Most of us, without realizing it, carry the signals of someone who needs something. It's in the language we use, the energy we bring into rooms, the way we talk about ourselves and our work. There's a quiet desperation underneath it. Even when we're doing well, high-level people read that signal instantly. Signal calibration is the process of deliberately shedding that and replacing it with the quiet, grounded confidence of someone who already belongs. Not arrogance, not performance, just presence. The second stage is information arbitrage. This is genuinely one of the most underrated social superpowers out there. It's the ability to connect dots across different industries, different circles, different conversations, and bring an insight to someone that saves them a year of figuring things out themselves. When you become the person who consistently does that, you stop being a contact and start being an asset. People start protecting that relationship because losing you means losing access to something they can't easily replace. And the third stage? This one's counterintuitive. It's not about being everywhere, it's about being selectively absent. I'll explain exactly why that's so powerful in a second. Okay, selective absence. Here's what this means. When you are available to everyone at all times for everything, you signal that your time has no premium on it. And in a world where the most powerful people are extremely protective of their attention, that makes you low status by default, not because you're not valuable, but because you're not acting like you are. Selective absence is the deliberate practice of being genuinely hard to access, not through games or manipulation, but because your time is actually going somewhere meaningful. When you show up, you're fully present. When you're not there, people notice. That contrast is what creates social gravity. It's what makes people want to be in the room when you're in it. Once you've mastered all three stages, something shifts. You stop competing for opportunities in the traditional sense. You stop applying. You stop pitching. Instead, you start getting invited into deals that never make it to the public market, into partnerships that form over dinner rather than through a deck. You become what I'd call a trusted node, someone whose endorsement is a shortcut. Someone whose name attached to something makes people trust it faster, move on it sooner, and question it less. Here's the deepest shift, and this is the one that ties everything together. At some point, you have to make a decision about who you are in a room. Are you an applicant or are you an architect? Because those two identities experience the exact same room completely differently. An applicant walks in hoping to be chosen. They're scanning for gatekeepers, trying to say the right things, trying not to put a foot wrong. An architect walks in understanding that the environment is, to some extent, whatever they make it. They're not performing for anyone, they're not waiting to be validated, they're simply operating. And that quiet self-possession is magnetic in a way that no amount of charm or credentials can fake. And once that shift happens, once you genuinely stop seeking opportunity and start embodying it, the social barriers that felt insurmountable just dissolve. Not because the gatekeeper suddenly got nicer, but because you stopped triggering the filters in the first place. You started looking like someone who already belongs. And in elite circles, that perception is everything. Here's where I want to leave you. Everything we've talked about today, the proximity, the signal, the framework, the identity shift, it all points to one conclusion. The greatest investment you will ever make is not in a stock. It's not in a property. It's not even in a business. It's in the deliberate, intentional engineering of who you are standing next to. Because your network, when built correctly, isn't just a list of contacts. It's a credit facility. It's borrowed authority. It's access to rooms that don't have a price on the door because they're not for sale. They're by invitation only. And that invitation comes from who you are, not what you have. The 1% aren't keeping secrets. They're just operating on a different frequency. And now you know what that frequency sounds like. The only question is whether you're willing to tune in. If this video made you think differently about how you move through rooms, leave a like. It's a small thing that does a big thing for this channel. And if you're serious about building at this level, subscribe. We go deep on this stuff every single week, and the next one is worth being here for. I'll see you in the vault.